Someone asked your person to forget you and get married. Their response changed everything. My beloved child, pause for just one impossible moment, because what you are about to hear did not begin with a celebration, a promise, or even a confession. It began with a single question that no one in that room expected would rewrite the direction of two hearts. Listen closely, because every second from here carries a hidden piece of the answer. Stay with this story a little longer, because the moment everyone thought would separate two paths became the moment destiny quietly spoke. Imagine a quiet evening where familiar faces gathered around your person. The conversation felt ordinary at first. Laughter echoed softly, cups rested on the table, and everyone believed they already knew how the night would end. But then someone leaned forward with complete confidence and asked the question that changed the atmosphere in an instant. What if you simply forget them, and marry someone else? Silence. Not the silence of confusion, but the silence that arrives when truth is searching for the right voice. No one noticed it at first, but your person's expression shifted ever so slightly. Their eyes no longer followed the conversation. Instead, they drifted somewhere far beyond the room, toward a memory no one else could see. What was hidden inside that silence? Wait before you decide. Because what happened next was something nobody around them could have predicted. Some believed the answer would be practical. Others expected hesitation. A few even smiled, convinced they already knew what your person would say. Yet destiny has a strange way of interrupting expectations just before they become certainty. Your person slowly took a breath. Not because they were uncertain, but because some feelings are too deep to be spoken quickly. Think about this for a moment. Why would a simple question require such a long pause? Sometimes the loudest answers are born inside the quietest moments. And perhaps, this is one of those moments. As everyone waited, another voice quietly added, "Life moves on. Some people are only meant to be memories." Those words floated through the air. But instead of agreeing, your person lowered their eyes. Almost as if those words could never describe what they truly carried within. There was no anger. No argument. Only an invisible certainty growing stronger with every heartbeat. If you're still listening, you're exactly where you need to be. Because the real story has not even revealed itself yet. The room began filling with opinions. One person spoke about timing. Another spoke about responsibility. Someone else insisted that letting go was the smartest choice. Yet every opinion seemed to move farther away from what your person was actually feeling. Isn't that fascinating? Sometimes the world believes it understands someone's future, while the heart quietly protects a truth no crowd can explain. Your person remembered something. Not a conversation. Not a promise. Just one unforgettable moment that refused to disappear. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it carried a feeling powerful enough to outlive doubt. What if that single memory became stronger than every voice surrounding them? What if the future had already placed an invisible answer inside their heart long before anyone asked the question? Stay a little longer. The next few moments reveal why this conversation was never really about marriage. It was about loyalty to something no one else could see. One by one, people waited for your person's response. Every face searched for certainty. Every second stretched longer. And then, without raising their voice, without trying to convince anyone, your person finally looked up. The room instantly became still. Not because they had spoken yet, but because everyone suddenly realized that whatever came next would not be ordinary. Sometimes the smallest sentence carries the greatest turning point. And the words about to leave their heart would quietly change the direction of everything that followed. Before this story reaches its next chapter, keep your attention here. Because what your person chose to say was not what anyone expected, and once those words were spoken, nothing inside that room remained the same. Just when everyone believed they could predict the answer, the atmosphere shifted in a way no one could explain. It felt as though time itself had slowed, giving every heartbeat a chance to witness what was about to unfold. If you've stayed this far, don't step away now. Because the next few moments reveal why that single question was never as simple as it sounded. Your person finally spoke. Not with a voice filled with emotion. Not with hesitation. But with a calm certainty that instantly silenced every opinion in the room. I can't pretend someone never mattered just because life became complicated. Those few words landed with unexpected weight. No one interrupted. No one laughed. For the first time that evening, every person present realized they had misunderstood what was truly living inside your person's heart. One relative gently replied, "But time changes everything." Your person smiled, not because they agreed, but because they had already discovered something deeper. "Time changes many things," they answered softly, "but it doesn't erase what shaped your soul." Another silence followed. This one felt different. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was reflective. Everyone around the table suddenly began questioning their own assumptions. Have you ever noticed how truth rarely arrives with noise? Sometimes it enters quietly, and still changes every heart willing to hear it. Your person wasn't refusing the future. They weren't trapped in the past either. They simply refused to build tomorrow by denying what had been real. That quiet honesty carried more strength than anyone expected. One friend leaned forward and asked, "So, are you saying you'll never move on?" Your person looked out the window for a brief moment, as though searching beyond the horizon instead of the room. Then came another answer no one was prepared for. "I'm saying I won't make a lifelong decision just because someone else believes it's time." The room fell completely still. Those words weren't about waiting forever. They were about remaining true to what their heart genuinely understood. What if that's the lesson hidden inside this story? Sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't choosing quickly. It's refusing to choose from pressure. Stay with this journey. The most unexpected revelation hasn't arrived yet. Curiosity had now replaced certainty. The same people who had been giving advice only minutes earlier were now listening more carefully than ever before. One older voice quietly asked, "Then what are you waiting for?" Your person's eyes reflected a quiet confidence. "I'm waiting until my decision feels like peace, not pressure." No one argued after that. Because some answers cannot be defeated by louder opinions. They can only be respected. If this story has stirred something inside you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying this journey, consider sharing it with someone who appreciates meaningful stories, and subscribing so you won't miss where this remarkable path leads. But don't leave just yet. Because someone in that room had been watching silently from the very beginning. And what they revealed next would completely transform the meaning of everything your person had just said. Then, without warning, someone who had remained completely silent throughout the entire conversation finally lifted their head. It wasn't the loudest person in the room. It wasn't the one giving advice. It was the one who had been carefully observing every expression, every pause, every unspoken emotion. And somehow, they understood what everyone else had missed. Before you move on, stay with this moment, because the truth about to surface carries the heartbeat of this entire story. That person quietly said, "You're all asking them to forget someone, but has anyone asked whether forgetting is even the right answer?" The room froze. No one expected those words. Every face slowly turned toward the speaker. For the first time that evening, the conversation was no longer about convincing your person to marry someone else. It had become a search for something much deeper, the difference between pressure and purpose. The silence felt almost sacred. Not because anyone had won the discussion, but because everyone suddenly realized they had been asking the wrong question. Your person looked toward the speaker with quiet gratitude. There was no need for long explanations. Sometimes one sentence is enough to make someone feel completely understood. Another family member softly asked, "So, what makes this person so different?" Your person smiled. Not the smile of someone trying to prove a point, but the smile of someone remembering something priceless. "They reminded me who I became," your person answered. Some people enter your life to change your plans, but a rare person changes your perspective. Those words settled into every heart in the room. No one interrupted. No one rushed to respond. Because deep inside, everyone recognized the honesty behind them. Think about this. How often do people measure relationships by time, when perhaps they should measure them by transformation? What if one genuine connection carries more meaning than years spent following expectations? Stay a little longer. The next revelation explains why this conversation was never about choosing between two people. It was about choosing between fear and authenticity. The evening grew quieter. Outside, the wind gently moved through the trees, almost as if nature itself had paused to listen. Then someone asked one final question. If they walked back into your life tomorrow, what would you do? Every eye returned to your person. This time, there was no long pause. No uncertainty. Only calm. "I wouldn't begin with promises," they said softly. "I'd begin with honesty. Because real connections don't grow from perfect timing, they grow from truthful hearts." Those words changed something invisible. The tension disappeared. Even those who had disagreed earlier found themselves reflecting instead of debating. It was as though the room had crossed an unseen bridge, from assumptions to understanding. But destiny wasn't finished. As everyone prepared to leave, the silent observer stepped closer to your person and whispered something that no one else could hear. The color in your person's face changed instantly. Their eyes widened. Not with fear, but with hope. A hope they had almost forgotten was possible. What was whispered in that final moment? Why did those quiet words change everything your person believed about the future? Don't rush ahead. Because the next chapter reveals the hidden message that had been waiting behind this entire conversation, and once it's spoken aloud, nothing will ever feel quite the same again. A new chapter unfolded before anyone even realized the previous one had ended. The whispered words remained hidden from every person in that room, except your person. Yet whatever they heard didn't make them restless, it made them unexpectedly peaceful. Stay until the very end of this journey, because the final pieces are beginning to fall into place, and they reveal why everything happened exactly when it did. The silent observer smiled gently and stepped back. No dramatic announcement. No grand revelation. Just a quiet reminder. Don't let other people's timelines become your destiny. Your person closed their eyes for a brief moment. It felt as though those words unlocked something they had been carrying for a very long time. Not doubt. Not regret. Clarity. For days they had wondered if they were falling behind while everyone else seemed to be racing ahead. But in that instant, they understood something that changed everything. A meaningful life isn't built by keeping pace with others. It's built by remaining true to what genuinely matters. When they opened their eyes again, the room looked exactly the same. But they were no longer seeing it through the same heart. One by one, people began gathering their things. The discussion that had started with pressure ended with reflection. Some apologized without saying the words directly. Others simply offered a quiet smile. Sometimes understanding doesn't arrive through arguments. It arrives when someone chooses authenticity over approval. As your person prepared to leave, the family member who had first suggested, "Forget them and get married," gently walked beside them. There was an awkward pause. Then came an unexpected sentence. "I may have been trying to protect you, but I forgot that only you know what brings peace to your own heart." Your person nodded with kindness. There was never anything to forgive. No bitterness. No victory. Only mutual respect. That single exchange healed far more than anyone realized. Think about that for a moment. How many conversations could end differently if people tried to understand before trying to convince? The night sky stretched above them, filled with quiet possibilities. Your person took one final look upward. For the first time in a long while, they weren't asking, "What if everything falls apart?" Instead, they found themselves asking, "What if everything is unfolding exactly as it should?" And sometimes, that single question becomes the beginning of an entirely new future. If this story has stayed with you from beginning to end, thank you for being part of this journey. Share your thoughts in the comments about the moment that touched you most. Share this story with someone who might need its message today, and subscribe if you'd like to experience more stories that inspire reflection and hope. As your person quietly walked away, their phone suddenly vibrated. Just one notification. No name. No explanation. Only a short message. The conversation isn't over, the most important answer is still waiting. Your person stood completely still. A gentle smile appeared. Because somehow, they already knew exactly where the next step would begin. And perhaps, so do you. The story could have ended with that message. It could have faded into silence, leaving every question suspended between hope and memory. But destiny had prepared one final moment, one that no one in that room could have imagined. Stay with these last moments, because the ending is not about coincidence. It is about understanding why every delay, every conversation, and every unexpected turn carried a purpose that was invisible until now. Your person looked at the message one more time. There was still no name. No explanation. Just those few unforgettable words. The conversation isn't over, the most important answer is still waiting. Instead of rushing to discover who had sent it, they did something unexpected. They smiled. Not because every problem had disappeared, but because they finally realized they no longer needed every answer immediately. Peace had quietly replaced pressure. And sometimes, that is the greatest transformation a person can experience. As they continued walking beneath the evening sky, every sentence spoken earlier echoed differently. Forget them. Move on. Get married. Those words no longer sounded like instructions. They sounded like crossroads. Because your person now understood something few people ever discover. A meaningful future is never built by abandoning what is true simply to satisfy what is expected. It is built one honest decision at a time. Perhaps that is why the entire conversation had to happen. Not to convince your person to choose someone, but to help them discover the strength of choosing authenticity. Think carefully. How many times do people search for signs outside themselves, when the clearest direction has quietly been growing within them all along? That realization changed everything. Days later, one of the same people who had encouraged your person to forget you reached out again. This time, the tone was completely different. I've been thinking about what you said, they admitted. I realized I was asking you to follow my fears instead of your truth. Your person answered with calm kindness. We all see life through our own experiences. What's important is that we're willing to understand each other. There was no resentment. No need to prove anyone wrong. Only growth. And that growth became the real victory. Because the strongest hearts are not the ones that win every argument. They are the ones that leave every conversation with greater wisdom. As the seasons quietly changed, so did your person's perspective. They stopped measuring life by deadlines. They stopped comparing their journey with everyone else's. Instead, they began trusting that what truly belongs in their future will never require them to betray who they are today. That quiet confidence became visible to everyone around them. The same people who once questioned their choices now admired their peace. Not because they had all the answers, but because they had stopped living according to someone else's expectations. And perhaps, that is the hidden message this entire story has been leading toward. Sometimes life places difficult questions before us, not to confuse us, but to reveal the quiet strength we never knew we possessed. The question was never, will you forget someone? The deeper question was, will you remain faithful to what your heart knows is true, even when the world offers an easier path? Only your person could answer that. And in answering it, they changed far more than one conversation. They changed themselves. So before this journey comes to its final close, carry this thought with you. Never allow another person's timeline to define your purpose. Never mistake pressure for direction. And never underestimate the power of a single honest choice. Because sometimes, one calm answer spoken from the heart changes an entire future. And perhaps, the greatest chapter of this story isn't the one you've just heard. It's the one